Hello, this is my video blog on to 2365 Level 3 assignment, which is to do with your 305 design assignment. And specifically I'm looking at question 2 on this. And question 2 has 3 parts, as you can see. There's a 2A, 2B and 2C. Yeah? It goes on to do 2D, 2E, 2F, 2G, 2H and 2I. But you'll find that a lot of these are quite straightforward. So what you will see is that I'm going to break this into 2 parts really. One part of it we're talking about lighting and one part of it that we are talking about sockets. So for the first part of it is question A. A is a research topic, so I'm expecting you to somehow find a little bit of research topic about the different lights. So I'm expecting you to sort of go onto Google and to type in at the top there about some lights to choose. And what you're going to do is look out for suitable luminaires for the pool and cafe block. So you need to look at your drawings for this one, and you need to say with your drawings, this is the swimming pool, and in my swimming pool I'm going to have certain amounts of lights in the sauna and bits like that. I may have lights which may be to do with this environmental external influences, so we're going to need to look into a little bit about what we're allowed to put in those sort of wet areas. In the regulations there is a chapter 702 which talks about swimming pools, and so that's probably worth a little look because it will give you some guidance as to what you should be putting into those different locations. So it's about this drawing and the next drawing. You've got to put in a certain amount of lights. You've got to take into account the energy efficiency. Why have you chose those lights? Why are they better than other lights? I've talked about environmental externals, whether there's any IP rating or anything outside. You've got to talk about whether you think it would look good, whether it's the right type of lighting for the environment. You've also got to talk about escape lighting. There's some various rules and regulations around escape lighting, but you need to make sure you provide enough escape lighting on your drawing. So you're looking some sort of emergency lights, and would expect to see some research where you've researched different types of lights you can use. Words like maintained and non-maintained should come up within that regulation in your research. It doesn't matter how many lights you've chosen to research, as long as there's a broad range of lights. And what you're also looking for is to make sure that you've got enough lights. We've got to get a bit of detail about them. So I would expect you to get some sort of product detail. Websites like Screwfix are probably quite a common one to have a look at and to see things like that. If you research lights, you can get them. Nice picture, nice bits of wording around it. Make sure that again you look back to these bullet points and make sure that within your research that you do, you can touch on each of these. Yeah? Highlight them, think about them in the. If you're looking at product details, try and see if you can highlight the bits on it so that you can explain really about using. So that's the first part of it. And then once you've done that, what you need to do is you need to draw onto your drawings positions for all the escape lighting. So you draw your emergency lights in of where you're going to put them, and then you also need to include all the other lights you're putting onto the drawings of exactly where you're going to put them in your installation. So at this point you're expecting to find that you're going to have these drawings, and with these drawings that you're going to put up with a pencil, you're going to print the drawings out, and then what you're going to do is you're going to draw onto here a particular light and say I'm going to put a light here, I'm going to put a light here, a light here, a light here, I'm going to put these types of lights in here, and I'm going to have some sort of escape light in here and something over the door here. It's up to you how you choose. You can't get this wrong. It says in your specifications here your selection does not need to be it. You can't get penalised for putting more lights or less lights on. Just make sure that you've put enough lights on there you feel it's going to be included. So you have to do it on that there, which is the cafe and the swimming pool. So just those 2 drawings. Don't go on any other drawings. You've got to make sure you do on those 2 drawings. So draw some lights on. Make sure that you can identify the different types of lights. If you're going to make up a code for it, absolutely you can write any code you like, but write down what the type of light is from your research. So you're going to say this is a fluorescent light or this is an LED light. Come up with your symbol for it, and then we should be able to then just go into these 2 drawings and just show the symbols for it. So those are the first 2 bits, and then what you need to do is look at the C part of it. And the C part of it says that we've got to include on the drawings, the other 2 drawings, this is in the hotel block, we've got to give equipment in each room. We've got to have a kettle, a TV, a phone charging, a 700 watt air handling unit, electrical tower rail. So for these drawings, we're looking at the first 2 drawings to look at these. So we're looking at drawings 1 and 2, which is the hotel block. what you're going to need to do in each of these blocks here is you're going to need to position, you're going to need to draw on the British Standard symbols for sockets. And you may say, oh, well, I have one over the desk here, I'm going to put one here, I'm going to put one there, I'm going to put one here. It's up to you where you put them on there, providing you can think about making sure that you've accounted to make sure that you've got one for a kettle, one for a TV, one for the phone charge, and one for the air handling unit and electrical tower rail. Now you've got to think about the air handling unit and the electrical tower rail. You can either put a socket on, but most of the other bits are talking about a fuse connection unit. So if you're talking about fuse connection unit, then you need to think at that time to think about which ones you'd include the fuses. So what you're going to do is you're going to say, this is where I want everything. You're going to say, oh, I'm going to put one here. You may say, I'm going to put a spur here to do the air handling somewhere along this wall right next to the door because it makes it easy access. The tower rail may go in a bathroom, but then obviously you may have supply outside the bathroom. You need to consider where you could put that. And so that's what you need to do. So once you've done one room, you should be able to replicate that in most of the other rooms. There are 2 bedroom rooms, but there are single bedrooms that you can see that this room looks exactly the same as this one. It's just mirror image of it. So I'd expect there to be a mirror image in how they're put on. So that's the bit you need to do, and this is bits talking about these. And then the next part of it is on the same drawings. You've got to show how the extension to be arranged. So how would you put the circuits? So how would you connect up the circuits? For this one, what you're going to have is you're going to have to connect these up. You've got these little rooms just outside here. You've also got this room down here that are not considered to be part of the actual apparatus. You've got to put in some fuse boards. And there is a question a bit further on that says that you can arrange and put more fuse boards on here, as many fuse boards as you like in there. So you can add fuse boards to this, and this is really important that you can add the fuse boards. So you probably might add a fuse board here or here or here or here. You can add 4 fuse boards, 2 fuse boards, 1 fuse board. It's totally up to you, and you can do as many or as little as you would like. What you need to consider when you do that is that what circuits are going to come out there. And if you've got a particular room, say this is a room, all the circuits from that fuse board have got to be within that room. You can't interlace them between rooms, yeah? You can't go between rooms. So you can't say one fuse board here, and I'm going to ring circuit that goes round 2 rooms. They've got to be independent circuits, yeah? So you may have a ring circuit that goes round, you may have a spur that goes to there, you may have a couple of radial circuits. I would recommend at this point that if you think about your fuse board, you would expect to see some sort of fuse board chart. So if you think about a fuse board chart, I would expect you to be able to just Google circuit board charts. If you look at circuit board charts, you get many images of these. If you take an image of any of these circuit board charts, yeah, of what a circuit board charts, it could be something, I now see one, you could just have one of this. It would be nice to have one for every one of your fuse boards. So what you do is that when you get to your drawing and you say, oh, I'm going to do this drawing, I'm going to include one fuse board here and it's going to control one ring here, you're going to have another ring here and it's going to contain 2 spurs. So my fuse board there would have my 4 circuits on. I'm going to say I'm going to put a 32 amp fuse in there for the ring circuit for bedroom, the 2-room bedroom. And then I'm going to put a spur that controls the air handling unit within that bedroom, and I'm also going to have a tower rail on a 16 amp spur, so you may include that as a separate circuit, and you'd include it on there. So I would expect to say that if you're going to put 4 fuse boards in here, that you'd include 4 separate circuit charts that would have the independent association of what they are. It says in here that we need to have a unique form of identification, and if you've got a circuit chart, that's where you're going to get the unique identification system out of it. So you're going to put fuse boards on here, and again you need to connect them up to the fuse boards, and you've got to do exactly the same in this room. This room's a little bit easier because they're all identical, they're just mirror images, so whatever you've done downstairs, make sure you just do exactly the same on the first floor, yeah? So exactly the same, you're going to draw as many fuse boards as you think you'll need in there. You're also going to put all your sockets on, the spurs on. If you look at the questions over it, it does talk about with the questions that really what you want to do is you need to include them for these bits. You don't need to include other bits and pieces, so you don't need to worry about some in the cupboards or anything like that. You only need to provide the sockets that are shown on here, sockets and spurs that are there for those particular bits. So just looking at those questions as we talked through there, you've got to show how you've wired them, you've got to give them some sort of unique form of identification again. If you're drawing and you can do different colours with your drawings, this is very helpful. Make sure that you can do it. You've added further distribution boards, and when we've done our last bits, what we've got to make sure is that we've drawn our lights on it. We're going to go back to the G now, which is very similar to what we did with that drawing there. We've got to go back to the pool and cafe, so these two drawings here, and where we've drawn on our lights, we've got to show how we're going to wire them up. Everything for these two rooms, it comes off this fuse board here, so it's really key that you try and use this one three-phase system to try and include all your circuits. So I would say that you're going to drop down here to the basement, which is sort of comes out somewhere where the female changing. So you can just show your cables appearing from here and going off to wherever they need to go off. We'll understand that that comes from the distribution board. And again, because you're going to be connecting all the lights up, as the drawing spec says, you need to make sure you include switching. So where would you switch a swimming pool? Bearing in mind, obviously, people are wandering around. Do you want people to touch swimming pool lights or not touch swimming pool lights? Think about that. You may decide to switch them all from one location, from different locations. Think about how you're getting in the building. There's only a couple of routes into the building, so think about which of the main buildings coming into it, because obviously you need to be aware that you've got to make sure that you're going to have some sort of light, so that it's no good putting the light switches over here if they're going to come in through this door. So try and think about some lights and where you're going to position them. So you need to show your switching as well, and again you need to have the same identification of the different bits. So I would expect you to see a three-phase distribution board chart with the lights listed that you've drawn on there. Again, doing it on a three-phase board here is really useful as well, because as you get later into later questions, especially question 6, it's really handy if you've got those locations in there. I mean, you can add more and more things off there. I would expect this board would be sort of an 18-way three-phase, so it'd have best part of 54 different ways within that fuse board. And don't panic that you've only used about 10 or 12 of them, because what you've got to consider is that there is a lot more other stuff that would be added in, and you'll probably need to add them on as you go later in there. So once you've done that, please make sure that any type of symbols, which you need for I, any type of symbols that you've created, if you've created a symbol for anything, if you put symbols in for sockets and things like that, make sure you've included the sockets and stuff in there like that, and just list them down what they are. It's nice to have a good legend, just so that you're clear that if you've used a slightly different drawing, if it looks slightly different, then it's still explicable with whatever you need to do. So that's the question. Question 2. It's a little bit in depth over there. I appreciate the video. It's best about 13 minutes long, but it's really important that you understand what you need to do on it and spend some time and get it as neat as you possibly can.